I, 34M, think my wife, 32F, has been lying to me for months, and I don't know what's real anymore. I've been lurking here for years. Never thought I'd actually post. But I'm at that point where my head feels like it's splitting in two. One part trying to rationalize everything, the other screaming that I've been a complete idiot. So, context. We've been married for 6 years, together for 9. No kids. For most of that time, things were not perfect, but stable. She's always been a bit sharp-tongued, quick to snap, but I used to brush it off as just her personality. She'd apologize sometimes, sometimes not. I convinced myself that was normal. Looking back now, I think the problem started way earlier than I admitted to myself. About 6 months ago, something shifted. It wasn't one big obvious thing, more like 100 tiny ones. She started guarding her phone like it contained nuclear codes. Late night, work messages. Sudden irritation whenever I asked simple questions like, "Hey, who was that?" She'd roll her eyes and say I was being paranoid. And here's the thing, she lies. Not always about big stuff. Sometimes it's small, pointless lies. Like saying she was at the store when I later find the receipt from a completely different place. When I'd point it out, she'd snap. "Why are you interrogating me? It's not a big deal." I started doubting myself more than her. But yeah, that was before things got weird. And I mean really weird. So yeah, the small lies thing didn't feel like a big deal at first. Annoying, sure, but not marriage-ending. I kept telling myself, pick your battles. That was my mindset. But then the timing started getting off. She began coming home later than usual. At first it was, we had a team meeting. Then, we grabbed drinks after work. Then suddenly it was happening like 3 to 4 times a week. The stories were always slightly different, but never detailed enough to feel real. If I asked follow-ups, she'd get defensive immediately. Like 0 to irritation in seconds. One night she came home around 1 a.m. No text, no heads up. I was sitting in the living room pretending to watch Netflix, but really just staring at the same pause screen for like an hour. She walks in, looks at me, and goes, "Why are you awake? You're acting weird." That hit me hard. I'm acting weird? I asked where she'd been. She said, "Out with coworkers." I asked which ones. She sighed loudly and said, "Oh my God, do I need to submit a report every time I go out?" That's her pattern. Deflect, minimize, make me feel like I'm overreacting. But here's where it started messing with my head more than usual. The next morning, I noticed her bag on the chair. Slightly open. I wasn't snooping. At least that's what I told myself. But I saw a receipt sticking out. Different bar than the one she told me. Different part of the city entirely. I brought it up later calmly. Or at least I tried to be calm. She didn't even hesitate. Just said, "Oh, we changed places last minute. I forgot." No apology. No. Yeah, that's confusing. Just smooth, instant explanation. And maybe that should have reassured me. But it didn't. Because it felt rehearsed. Like she'd already planned for getting caught. That was the first moment I remember thinking, I don't trust my own wife. And once that thought got in, it didn't leave. After that receipt thing, something in me just shifted. I didn't confront her again right away. Honestly, I think I was scared of what I'd find if I pushed too hard. So instead, I started paying attention. Like, really paying attention in a way I never had before. And once you start noticing things, it's hard to unsee them. Her phone was basically glued to her hand at this point. Not just using it, guarding it. If I walked into the room, she'd tilt the screen away or lock it instantly. At night, it went face down. Always face down. She even started taking it into the bathroom when she showered. That one stuck with me. Who brings their phone into the shower unless they're expecting something? I tried to ignore it. Told myself I was spiraling. But then came the first real, "What the hell?" moment. We were supposed to have dinner together on a Friday. I even left work early, picked up takeout from her favorite place, tried to do something nice. She texted me around 6:30 saying she'd be a bit late. Fine. Happens. An hour goes by. Then 2. I call her. No answer. I text, "Hey, everything okay?" She replies 20 minutes later, "Yeah, just busy. Don't wait up." That stung more than I expected. Around 10:30, I get this random gut feeling. I don't even know why. I just grabbed my keys and drove out. No plan. Just drove toward her office. And here's where things got weird. Her car wasn't there. Not in the lot. Not on the street. Nowhere. I sat there for a solid 5 minutes, just staring like an idiot, trying to come up with a logical explanation. Maybe she parked somewhere else? Maybe they went out as a group? I almost convinced myself. Then my phone buzzed. It was her. "Still at the office. Super busy. Talk later." I remember reading that text while literally sitting outside an empty parking lot where her car definitely wasn't. That was the first time I felt that cold, sinking feeling in my chest. Not suspicion. Not doubt. Just, something is very wrong. And she was lying to my face about it. I didn't go home right away after that. I just sat there in the car, rereading her message over and over like it might suddenly make sense on the 10th try. Still at the office. Except, she clearly wasn't. That's when my brain started doing that thing, connecting dots that maybe weren't even there, but suddenly felt impossible to ignore. I thought about the late nights, the guarded phone, the irritation every time I asked a basic question, the small lies that didn't matter, except they did. They were practice, rehearsal for this. I wish I could say I handled it calmly. I didn't. I started driving. No destination, just moving. Then I remembered that receipt from earlier that week, the bar in the other part of the city. It wasn't that far. And for some reason, it felt like the only lead I had. So yeah, I went there. The place was crowded. Loud music, people everywhere. I almost turned around because I immediately felt stupid. Like, what was I even expecting? That she'd just be standing there waiting for me to catch her? But then, and I swear this felt like something out of a bad movie, I saw her jacket. Not her face at first. Just the jacket I've seen her wear 100 times. My stomach dropped instantly. I moved closer, trying not to look obvious, and then I saw her. Sitting at the bar. Laughing. And she wasn't alone. There was a guy next to her. Close. Like, too close. The kind of close where you don't need to guess what's going on, even if you desperately want to. I just stood there for a second, completely frozen. My brain couldn't catch up with what my eyes were seeing. Because just minutes ago she was at the office. And now she was here. With him. Laughing like I hadn't seen her laugh in months. That's the moment it stopped being abstract. It wasn't just weird behavior anymore. It was real. And I had no idea what to do next. I wish I could say I handled that moment with dignity. I didn't. At first, I just stood there like an idiot, half hidden behind a group of people, staring at them. My brain kept trying to rewrite reality in real time. Maybe it's a coworker. Maybe I'm overthinking the body language. Maybe. Then she touched his arm. Not casually. Not friendly. It was familiar. Comfortable. The kind of touch you don't think about, because you've done it 100 times before. That snapped something in me. I walked straight up to them. No plan. No calm speech prepared. just pure adrenaline. She saw me first, and I will never forget that look on her face. Not guilt. Not even shock at first. Annoyance. Like I had just shown up to ruin her evening. "Are you serious right now?" she said. Those were her first words. Not, "I can explain." Not, "This isn't what it looks like." Just irritation. I looked at her, then at him. He looked confused as hell, like he had no idea who I was. I said, probably louder than I should have, "I thought you were at the office." She didn't even flinch. "I was. We came here after." Just instantly. Another lie layered on top of the last one. I pointed outside. "Your car isn't there." She rolled her eyes. Actually rolled her eyes. "I parked somewhere else." "Why are you stalking me?" At that point, people around us were definitely listening. I could feel it. But I didn't care anymore. I asked, "Who is he?" And this is where it got worse. She shrugged. "A friend." The guy finally spoke up, like, "Hey, is everything okay?" Clearly uncomfortable. I looked at him and said, "I'm her husband." Silence. You could feel the shift. He turned to her immediately like, "Wait, what?" And she just sighed. Like this was the inconvenience. Not the lying. Not the situation. Just the fact that it was now out in the open. "Can we not do this here?" she said to me, completely cold. That was the moment I realized something really messed up. I was the only one in that situation who didn't already know what was going on. I didn't make a scene after that. At least, not the kind people expect. No yelling. No throwing punches. No dramatic exit. Honestly, I think I just shut down. I looked at her, then at him, then back at her again, like I was waiting for someone to step in and explain what reality I was currently living in. But no one did. The guy stood up awkwardly and muttered something like, "I didn't know," and grabbed his jacket. He looked genuinely uncomfortable, like he just realized he walked into a situation way bigger than he signed up for. And here's the part that still messes with me. She didn't stop him. No. Wait. No explanation to him. Nothing. She just let him walk out. Like he was disposable. Then she turned to me, crossed her arms, and said, "Can we go somewhere else and talk? You're making this a bigger deal than it needs to be." That sentence hit harder than anything else so far. A bigger deal than it needs to be. I laughed. Not because anything was funny, more like my brain didn't know how else to react. I said, "You lied to me. You're here with some guy. And I'm making it a big deal?" She sighed again, like she was tired of repeating herself. "I didn't lie. I just didn't tell you everything. There's a difference." I swear, hearing that almost made me question my own understanding of words. We ended up stepping outside. Cold air, people passing by, normal Friday night for everyone else. For me, it felt like everything just cracked open. I asked her straight up, "Are you cheating on me?" She didn't answer right away. She looked away, then back at me, calculating, like she was deciding which version of the truth to go with. And then she said, "It's not that simple." That's when the anger finally hit. Not explosive, not loud, just this heavy, burning feeling in my chest. Because if it's not that simple, it usually means the answer is yes, but with excuses. And I realized something in that moment. This wasn't going to be a clean confession. It was going to be a negotiation of reality. Standing out there, I kept waiting for her to finally just say it. One clear sentence. Yes or no. Instead, I got layers. She crossed her arms tighter and said, "You've been distant for months." That threw me off immediately. Not because it was completely untrue. I mean, yeah, work's been stressful, I haven't exactly been super emotional lately, but the timing felt insane. I said, "We're not doing that. Answer the question." She ignored it. "You don't listen to me anymore. Every time I try to talk, you shut down." I actually laughed again, but this time it came out bitter. "I'm literally standing here asking you if you're cheating on me, and you're giving me a performance review?" She snapped back. "See? This is exactly what I mean. You twist everything." That's when I realized what she was doing. She wasn't answering because answering would lock her into one version of the truth. And as long as things stayed vague, she could keep control. So I changed the question. "How long have you been seeing him?" Small pause. Then, "We're just talking." I shook my head. Don't insult me like that. I saw you." Her jaw tightened. "It's not serious." That word, not serious, hit weirdly hard. Like somehow that made it acceptable. "So there is something," I said. She hesitated again, then shrugged. "I didn't plan for it to happen." There it was. The closest thing to an admission I was going to get. And even then, it came wrapped in this passive, almost detached tone, like she was describing bad weather, not blowing up a marriage. I asked, "Does he know you're married?" She rolled her eyes. "I told him it's complicated." Of course she did. I felt this wave of anger rise again, but underneath it, something worse. Clarity. Because suddenly all the little things made sense. The phone. The late nights. The lies that didn't matter, except they did. They were practice. Rehearsal for this. I looked at her and said, quietly this time, "Have you been with him?" She didn't answer. She just looked at me, and that silence said everything. I didn't need details. Didn't want them. That was the moment the last bit of denial I had just disappeared. We stood there for a while after that, not really saying anything. It wasn't one of those dramatic silences you see in movies. No music, no rain, no big moment. Just two people standing on a cold street, completely disconnected. I think that's when the shock started wearing off. And what replaced it wasn't anger anymore. It was exhaustion. The kind that hits you all at once, like your brain finally gives up trying to process everything. I said, "I'm going home." She nodded like that was the most normal outcome in the world. "Okay, I'll come later." That later felt strange. Like we were still operating under the assumption that things were normal enough for her to just show up whenever she felt like it. I didn't argue. I didn't ask where she was going next. I just walked to my car and left. The drive home is kind of a blur. I remember stopping at a red light and realizing I had no memory of the last 5 minutes of driving. Just autopilot. When I got home, everything looked exactly the same as I left it. Takeout containers still on the table. TV still paused on the same scene. Lights still on. It felt wrong. Like walking into a set after the actors have left. I sat down on the couch and just stared. And that's when it all started hitting in waves. First came the anger again, sharper this time. I replayed everything in my head. Every lie, every moment, every time she made me feel like I was overreacting. I kept thinking, how long? How long has this been happening while I was just living my life like nothing was wrong? Then the anger kind of collapsed into something heavier. Sadness, I guess. But not the dramatic kind. More like this dull, constant pressure. I looked around the apartment and started noticing little things. Her shoes by the door. Her mug in the sink. A jacket on the chair. All normal stuff. But now it felt like evidence. Like everything in that space was tied to someone I didn't actually know. At some point, I checked my phone. No messages from her. And that's when another thought hit me. She wasn't rushing home. Not after everything that just happened. Not after I found out. Which meant one of two things. Either she didn't care, or she already knew she didn't need to. I'm not sure which one hurt more. She came home around 2 a.m. I didn't sleep. Not even close. I was still on the couch. Same position more or less. Lights off this time. Just sitting there in the dark, phone in my hand, not even using it. I heard the door unlock. For a second, my chest tightened like I didn't know what version of her was about to walk in. The annoyed one. The defensive one. The one who might finally tell the truth. She stepped inside quietly, saw me, and paused. "Oh, you're still up." No apology. No urgency. Just mild surprise. I said, "Yeah." That was it. That was all I had in me at that moment. She took off her jacket, set her bag down like it was any normal night. The routine of it felt almost insulting. Then she said, "We should talk." And I remember thinking, now you want to talk? But I nodded anyway. We sat across from each other. Not close. Not far. Just enough space to feel the distance. She started first. "I didn't mean for this to happen." Same line. Slight variation. I didn't respond. She continued. "It just kind of developed." I asked. "While you were lying to me every day?" She winced slightly, but recovered fast. "I wasn't lying every day." That right there, still correcting details instead of acknowledging the whole thing, made something in me go cold again. I said, "How long?" She hesitated. "A couple months." I held her gaze. Didn't say anything. She added, quieter, 3 months. 3 months of coming home to me. Sitting next to me. Talking about random stuff. Making plans. All while this was going on in parallel. I asked, "Are you still seeing him?" Another pause. "Yes." At least that one was honest. I nodded slowly. Then I asked the question I didn't even know I was going to ask until it came out. "Do you love him?" That one actually made her react. She frowned, like the question itself was unreasonable. "No, it's not like that." Not like that. I almost smiled, but there was nothing funny about it. Because whatever that was, it was enough for her to risk everything we had. And I realized something in that moment. I'd been hoping, somewhere deep down, that this was already over. That getting caught would snap her back to reality. But it wasn't over. Not for her. Which meant the next part was going to be entirely on me. The next morning, I woke up with a strange mix of dread and determination. I knew what I had to do, even if my heart didn't want to admit it yet. I called her into the living room. The look on her face told me she knew something was coming. Maybe not exactly what, but close enough. I said, calmly but firmly, "We need to talk about our marriage." About us. She sighed, rolled her eyes slightly, and muttered, "I told you it's complicated." "No," I said, shaking my head. "It's not complicated. It's simple. You cheated, you lied, and you don't know if you even want to be married. That's it. Nothing more, nothing less." Her eyes narrowed. "That's not fair. You're being dramatic." I laughed bitterly. Dramatic? No. I'm just stating facts. The truth. She stayed silent for a moment, probably realizing she had nothing to counter. And that silence gave me the clarity I'd been searching for. I told her, "I can't do this anymore. Not this back and forth, not this uncertainty, not the constant erosion of trust. I love you, or I thought I did. But I can't stay married to someone who doesn't want to be married to me." She opened her mouth to respond, but I didn't let her. I need to live in a reality where I'm respected, where I'm valued, where I'm not constantly doubting the person I chose to spend my life with. And that's not this reality. She looked hurt, maybe angry, maybe even shocked. But I didn't care anymore. I had made my decision. I was ending it. And for the first time in months, I felt a strange sense of relief. Not joy, not happiness, but lightness. Like the weight of all the lies, all the uncertainty, all the betrayal was finally being lifted. The next few weeks were brutal. We separated the essentials, clothes, personal items, our shared space. Every little thing reminded me of her, of the life we thought we had. Every mug in the cupboard, every photo on the wall, every stupid little note she'd left me over the years. But at the same time, each step I took to reclaim my space, my apartment, my life, felt like peeling off a layer of suffocating weight. I spent nights lying awake, thinking about everything. The lies, the cheating, the way she could be so cold and detached. And the anger came in waves, sharp, hot, unpredictable. One minute I was furious, the next I was completely numb. I called a few close friends, trying to talk it out, trying to make sense of it. But honestly, no one could fully understand. You don't really understand betrayal until you're living it, until the person you trusted the most turns out to be someone you barely know. And then came the quieter moments. Sitting alone in my apartment, walking down streets we used to walk together, even scrolling through social media where she'd moved on almost immediately. That part stung more than anything. But slowly, almost imperceptibly, I started feeling something else. Acceptance. Not forgiveness. Not happiness. Just clarity. I realized that her choices weren't about me. They were about her. About her patterns, her inability to communicate honestly, her selfishness. And the truth is, I couldn't change her. I could only change me. So I started making small decisions for myself, turning off notifications, unfollowing her on social media, calling friends more often, going to the gym, sleeping better. Nothing dramatic. Just reclaiming the small pieces of myself that had gotten lost in her lies. And for the first time in months, I felt like I might actually survive this. It's been a few months since the separation became official. I won't lie, it's been hard. Some days feel like they'll never end. I still catch myself thinking about her, about what went wrong, about the life I thought we had. But those moments are shorter now. Less sharp. Less suffocating. What I've learned through all of this is brutal but important. Trust is everything. Once it's gone, there's no easy fix. And no amount of apologies or explanations can undo the damage if the other person never truly values honesty. I've also realized that it's okay to prioritize myself. To put my own mental health, my own peace of mind, above someone else's convenience or excuses. It doesn't make me weak. It doesn't make me bitter. It makes me human. If there's one piece of advice I can give to anyone going through something similar, don't ignore the small signs. Don't let yourself be gaslit into doubting your own instincts. And don't settle for someone who doesn't see your worth. I don't know what the future holds. Maybe I'll fall in love again someday. Maybe I'll stay single for a while. But I do know one thing. I won't lose myself in someone else's lies again. And somehow, that feels like the only victory I need